All right, let's dive into this, shall we? FC Winterthur, a Swiss football club you sent over a whole bunch of stuff about. Most of it's in German, so
Yeah.
consider us your translators on this.
Okay.
This isn't just like a regular sports thing. There's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
It's a club that seems to kind of mirror its city's history. They've been through a lot of stuff, and there's this almost like cult following around them. I even saw them being called the St. Pauli of Switzerland,
Oh,
which,
yeah.
I mean, that's what got me interested.
That says a lot, yeah.
Yeah, so
Hints at something more than just a team trying to, climb the ranks.
right, exactly. So we're going way back to the beginning. We're talking 1896. FC Winterthur is founded, one of the oldest clubs in Switzerland. So,
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine their first locker room was a pub called Zum Wildenmann?
I love that. You could just picture it.
Yeah, it's very cinematic, isn't it?
Totally. And, it reflects how much influence the English had on football in Switzerland,
Yeah.
especially at that time. A lot of the founders of FC Winterthur were students at the Technicum. It was a technical school in Winterthur.
So not just a bunch of guys kicking a ball around, right? There's some
Yeah.
a little more structure going on. But even with all of that, the glosser mentions they had money problems early on, and people in the city weren't really into it.
Right.
Like imagine a new sport coming to town and people are just like, nah.
Well, I guess it just goes to show, football wasn't always this global thing like it is today. Or
Yeah.
they had to earn their place. And
Yeah.
it sounds like for FC Winterthur, it wasn't just about playing the game. They had to, convince the whole city to get on board.
Right. And they weren't always going it alone. The club's history riddled with all of these mergers, name changes, they're kind of all over the place. In 1908, they merged with FC Fortuna Winterthur, which, get this, it actually made them the biggest club in Switzerland, at least at the time, in terms of membership. What's crazy is that back then, things were much more fluid, so players could be on multiple teams, and merging was pretty common. They were just figuring it out
Right.
as they went.
So different from the very structured leagues that we know today.
Right.
It really makes you think, how did that early, sort of free-flowing way of doing things, how did that affect the club's identity?
Yeah.
You wonder, did all of those different mergers, did that bring in different playing styles, different perspectives?
Yeah.
How does that, all those smaller clubs coming together, how did that affect how the city saw them?
That's a good question. It makes their early dominance even more impressive, right? But then World War I.
Right.
Everything goes to,
Oh,
chaos,
good
like
idea.
most of Europe. And it says in the glossar that their stadium, Schützenweis, almost got turned into a farm.
Really?
The players literally had to work the land to save it, which, I mean, that dedication,
Wow.
what do you think kept them going in a time like that?
I think it really speaks to something very human, right? Even during war, people still want, a sense of normalcy. They need connection, community, and sports can really offer that, can't it?
Yeah.
It's like a shared experience. It's something that brings people together,
Yeah.
where maybe all those differences sort of fade away. So I imagine, for FC Winterthur, maybe it was a way to hold on to something familiar when everything else felt so uncertain.
Right. So it was more than just the sport itself. It was like a symbol of hope, of keeping going.
Exactly.
And it's interesting, right? Because after the war, they don't just rebuild the football team. They get into other sports, athletics, tennis. There's even a singing section.
Really?
It seems like they're trying to be even more a part of the community, a place for everybody.
It shows how they were adapting and how their role in the city was evolving. They were more than just a football club, right? They were becoming a social hub, a place to gather, a source of entertainment and camaraderie.
Yeah.
And the world needed that.
Right.
And, it's interesting. It's like a theme that you see throughout their history.
I know, right?
What do you say?
Totally. But of course, a long history means there are going to be ups and downs for you. You can't avoid that. The glosser mentions the 1960s and 70s as their golden years. They signed Timo Poniecka,
Oh, wow.
who was this incredible goal scorer. I mean, 30 goals in one season.
That's amazing.
I know. It was huge for the club.
Yeah. It shows their ambition. They wanted to be at the top.
Right.
I bet those golden years were pretty exciting for the fans.
Oh, I bet. But, success can be fleeting in football.
Yeah.
Things took a turn for the worse. And they had some, money problems. Serious financial trouble.
Yeah, and that's where their story takes a very interesting turn. The near bankruptcy in 2001, it could have been the end, but instead it's like it set the stage for something really unique.
Yeah, it's like they had to figure out a new way to define success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't about climbing the league tables anymore. It was about survival.
Yeah.
And that meant, like, really connecting with their community.
Yeah,
And that's when that St. Pauli of Switzerland idea really starts to fit, I think.
absolutely. With Andreas Muesli as manager,
Yeah.
they really leaned into being the underdog, you know?
Yeah.
And they found this unique space for themselves. They weren't going after those huge sponsors
Right.
or trying to be something they weren't. The focus was on authenticity, on really engaging with the community
Mm-hmm.
and creating a football experience that was like truly open to everyone.
And that's where you get stuff like the syrup curve, right?
Yeah. The syrup curve.
It's this section in the stadium where kids get in free and get this, free syrup.
That's fantastic.
I mean, how cool is that? It's like saying, hey, we're a family club. Everybody's welcome. But, thinking about it from a business angle,
Yeah.
how does that work?
I mean, it's definitely a bold move,
Yeah.
but it shows what they value, right?
Yeah.
It's about getting that next generation of fans on board,
Yeah.
making sure they love the game,
Mm-hmm.
creating a really positive atmosphere for families.
Mm-hmm.
And, even if it doesn't bring in money directly,
Right.
it builds this sense of loyalty, goodwill in the community, this feeling of belonging. And that, you could argue is even more valuable in the long run.
It's like they're saying, we're not just selling you a ticket, we're building something special here.
Exactly.
And it goes beyond just the match day, too. They
Mhm.
have this reputation for, like, their youth program, their talent development, and
Yeah.
they've had some amazing players come out of there, like Manuel Akanji.
Oh, yeah. He went on to play for Dortmund and the Swiss national team.
Exactly.
I mean,
Incredible.
he-
And they do all of that on, a relatively small budget.
That's right. They're not out there buying star players. They're developing them from the ground up.
Right.
Which
Right.
says a lot about their coaching, their scouting, their commitment to these young players.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if, that focus on community and social responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
if that actually helps them attract and keep those young players.
Yeah, I bet. If you make a place where players feel valued, supported, connected to something bigger,
Yeah.
it makes sense that they'd thrive.
Right.
And it's not even just about, producing pro players. They have FC Brulget,
Oh, right.
which is a team for people with disabilities, showing their commitment to inclusivity, to making football accessible to absolutely everyone.
It really shows that they believe football can be a force for positive change.
Yeah.
They're not just talking about it, they're actually living it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then there's their work in promoting women's football.
Yeah, that's an important part of their story.
Yeah, the glosser talks about Sarah Akanji, Manuel's sister, and her fight to get a women's team started within FC Winterthur.
It's a fight that's been going on for a long time.
Yeah,
Not just in Switzerland, but all over the world.
right.
For decades, women were actively kept from playing football.
Yeah.
It's only recently that we've seen things start to change.
Yeah, it's like a whole other story in itself.
Right.
Sarah Akanji's experience, it's a reminder of how far we've come, but also how much more we still have to do.
Absolutely.
Even when they finally got the women's team up and running in 2016, they had this amazing start, but then they got relegated.
Yeah.
It shows that just having teams isn't enough.
Right.
It's about giving them equal opportunities, resources, the same support.
It's about challenging those, deep-seated biases.
Yeah.
And creating a situation where women can actually succeed.
And FC Winterthur's commitment to that, even with their limited budget, is it's pretty impressive.
It really is. It fits perfectly with their overall philosophy.
Totally. So we've gone from a pub to almost going bankrupt to this amazing comeback as a community-driven club.
Yeah.
It's a story about resilience, adapting, and staying true to your values. What do you think, if someone is hearing all this for the first time, what's the most important thing to take away from it?
I think it's that success, whether it's in football or anything else, can mean different things.
Mm-hmm.
FC Winterthur shows us it's not always about the trophies, the league position. It's about what you do for your community, the values you have, the legacy you leave behind.
It's about building something that lasts, something that matters.
Yeah.
And in a world where football is all about money and brands, FC Winterthur is kind of like a breath of fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
It shows that the heart of the game is still there in those clubs that put people first,
Yeah.
community over, making a quick buck, and real connection over just winning at all costs.
And that's a story worth telling.
Yeah. Makes you think, Like, what are we really rooting for when we support a team?
Yeah, good question.
Is it all about the wins, or is there something deepy going on?
It's definitely something to think about, especially now when, sports and business are so intertwined.
Yeah.
FC Winterthur, they show us that the real heart of football is still there in those local communities with those passionate fans, players who really care about the badge and all those people working behind the scenes.
And they've managed to like navigate all that pressure and still stay true to what they believe in.
Right.
It's pretty inspiring, honestly. It gives me hope that even with all the focus on money and, global brands, there's still room for real connection, for community in sports.
And they've done it by being really smart. Remember those early mergers?
Oh, yeah.
Those were just random choices. Those were calculated moves to build something solid, to grow within the city, to create a club that could handle anything that came their way.
Like they were planning for the future way back then.
Yeah.
And it paid off, especially when they had those money troubles. They didn't freak out and, abandon what they stood for. They actually doubled down on it. And that really resonated with their fans.
And it attracted the right people, talented players, coaches who were drawn to that vision.
Yeah.
They knew they weren't just joining any club. They were becoming part of something bigger.
It's like authenticity breeds authenticity.
Yeah, totally. When you're real about your values, about what you're trying to do, people will see that and they'll want to be a part of it.
And it creates this positive cycle, right?
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just the game itself. Their commitment to, social responsibility, to being inclusive, to developing young talent, to supporting women's football.
Right.
All of that, it all adds to who they are and what they mean to the community.
So much more than just a club, like we've been saying.
Right.
It's almost like an experiment, a social experiment, showing that you can be successful without sacrificing your community, your principles.
Yeah.
In fact, maybe that's the key to real success.
Exactly. And I think that's a really powerful message for our listener today. As you go through those articles, those resources you've got, think about this. How does FC Winterthur's story, how does it connect with you?
Yeah.
What can you take from it and apply to your own life, your community, the things you're passionate about?
Maybe it'll inspire you to, support local projects, to fight for inclusivity, or just find ways to connect with your community in a more meaningful way.
Because really, when you get down to it, FC Winterthur reminds us that we're all connected and that by working together, supporting each other, staying true to ourselves, we can achieve amazing things.
It's been fantastic diving into the world in FC Winterthur with you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
It's a story that's really stuck with me, and I hope it does the same for you.
And remember, these deep dives, they're just the start. There's always more to explore, more to learn, more to discover.
So stay curious, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the things that spark your interest.
Until next time, happy exploring.